All right, Mike wanted me to talk about water wells, dug wells, natural springs, that kind of stuff. And the first thing we have to understand is how water moves through the soil. Anybody familiar with this kind of stuff? Or, okay, cool. What do you do?
I'm an environmental engineer.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe you can help me out. I drew some stuff up so you don't have to stand here and wait for me to draw it. We can mark it up afterwards. But what I've got here is water moves laterally through the soil, okay? Down here, this lower end on that is more of a, most of the soils around here are a glacial till. They're classified as that. I don't always agree with it, but they're more, it's more of a dense, has clay in it, that kind of stuff, stony. But it changes, you know, it's a site-specific type of thing. I don't know, we've got a post right here. But, so your water will be across the top of that. What's above that glacial till is usually a little bit lighter soil. And above that is your topsoil, okay? For springs, that kind of thing, this blue line right there is where, that's like the line water likes to move at, okay? And the steeper the slope, the steeper things go, water will have a tendency to break out in different places. If you have a breaking grade or breaking slope, like here, that'll flatten off, water will have a tendency to pool there. Okay, so people are like, well, I have a really wet spot here. And then when you want to go drain it or do something like that, you come up here trying to intercept the water up higher to stop it from getting there. And they're like, well, that's not where it's wet. Yeah, but that's what's causing it, you know. By the same token, again, if somebody wants a pond or something, that's where you build the pond. Or a spring development or something like that. And where a lot of springs showed up, it was the breaking grade. So it's wet here, or I did bring markers. If the grade has a tendency to drop like this and come out like that, this water here will break out at that point. And then you're looking at, we have, well, that's where water's coming out, you know, and so that's where they'll develop the spring. So that's what I'm looking at that end. We have any questions on that? Yes?
How deep is it to get to the water that is moving?
Normally, go ahead.
Okay, so it depends on where you are. So if you have a place where, like say you are in a situation where if you're near a stream, like an actual water body, oftentimes the groundwater going away from it. So say you have, if you have, so here's like a, you know, here's the topography, and then it goes like that. Sorry, you probably can't see because I'm left-handed. So here's your stream. So
we
this
work
is like
well
a
together.
Section, right? And you'll see, like, so the topography, water likes to flow with the topography. And so usually you'll see, like, so here's the water, you know, it rains, and it'll flow around the same depth until it hits your stream. There's your water body. So the depth to water, it's usually like a little bit, it'll like on the slope, it won't go all the way, but it'll usually kind of come up and rise with the topography. And so it depends on what your distance is from the from your, you know, like your you know, surface water. So your depth to water here is going to be shallower than it would be on top of here. So like looking at right here, you can see the the Mohawk down, you know, in the valley down there. So the depth to the groundwater here could be, you know, probably 100 feet, maybe, like, you know, looking at the topography and where you're there, unless I don't know what's over on that side. So you kind of look at your maps and you see where the surface water is. Mm-hmm.
So if you have two bodies of water or two similar bodies of water, but they're at either different altitudes or different sizes,
Yeah.
which one takes precedent? Like, is it the volume of water of that body of water that's more precedent, or is it which one's at altitude would take precedence on which one's
That's
greater depth?
It's a good question. It depends. There's a lot of different parameters. I would say usually it's whichever is closest. Like the size doesn't really matter because it's what's your potential, right? If you think about like I'm trying to think of when you're trying to do a siphon, right? Like water will flow in a direction. So it's like whatever has it's called like hydraulic head is what it's called. It's just like the height and the pressure. So it'll go whichever has like the difference is
The better pull.
yeah, kind of the better pull in one direction. So you can actually get, it's kind of cool with groundwater is that you'll have these like hydraulic gradients. So like water will go flow this way on this side of the hill, it'll flow the other way on the other side of the hill. So, and like springs and whatnot happen when you have a situation where
There's an eraser in there, I think, if you want.
okay. Where you'll have like, so say you have like a mountains over here, and then you have, there can be different layers of so like this is gonna be a clay layer. Water doesn't like to go through clay. It likes to go through sand. So sand and gravel are higher permeability zones. And so what you can happen, so this is the sand layer, and then you've got another sand layer up here. And you can actually, so when rain happens, you'll find recharge, where basically the rainwater comes into the ground and it'll recharge and come into the groundwater. So that can happen here, and that same kind of, we call it the potentiometric surface. So it's basically the surface of your water table in the ground, and it can be higher. So like what would happen normally, like if this were going in, like basically the height of the water, the recharge comes down into this zone, and the pressure, like that difference in the pressure in here is also that same pressure amount of water coming in here. And if you have a crack here, the water will come up to the surface. And that's what causes like artesian well conditions, where the water, like you'll put in a spring, it'll squirt up because your pressure, the pressure differential between this side and this, like water wants to kind of be level. So if you have two places where water isn't level, it's going to want to normalize and go and be level again. Yeah. Or Bernoulli's. I think it's Bernoulli's principle, but I didn't want to go.
Principle, but Archimedes found it.
Okay, I'll believe you. But yeah, so that's the kind of whole premise of springs is basically water wants to balance, but there's a pressure. There's some sort of a confining unit that is preventing that from happening, so it ends up pushing up. So so you can see that a lot in like, bedrock happens, or if you have like really big changes in topography, as Tom was saying, like where it will go like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I took it over.
The other, answering your question before too, about normally like putting drainage in or something like that, I'm at 3 to 4 feet deep is where I'm usually intercepting water pretty well, and it'll be in that 2 to 4 feet in there. And then you could do that in steps down the hill for drainage, across the field, something like that. Anything else on that? You're doing really good.
I can continue.
Mike wanted me to talk about spring developments, that kind of thing. So what I do is go into an area, where obviously it's wet, dig a test hole, see what you have, see if it fills up, or if water goes down, or what level it's coming in. Last year I did one for someone that I built him a pond, and it was a dry time of year. There was just a little bit of water was seeping into the pond at a neighborhood of maybe 30 inches deep. I went up to where they wanted to do a little off-grid house, and we decided, well, maybe a spring development would be a way to go. We dug a hole down about 5 feet deep, and the water was coming in at that same 30 inches. Below that was bone dry. Okay, so what we end up doing, once we determined that it's maintaining water at that height, and I kept surface water out of it, bermed it up around it. That is a picture over here of Anybody know what dry wells are? Okay. What I did is took precast concrete dry well, and we put that in the ground. They come with a lid. They have different sizes, anywhere from 4 to 8 feet, 4, 6, 8, that kind of thing. Different prices. And they have an 18-inch access port right here. It's precast concrete to get down into it. And what I'll do is I went to the concrete supplier and I asked them to, when they pour one of those, gave them a 6-inch PVC coupling to put in it. And then I'll put a piece of pipe at the bottom side of the coupling, the top side of the coupling, and I'll bury this down to like the level where the water's coming in or just below that, with stone around it, filter fabric around that, and then this pipe will come up to the surface, and you take the backfill material, you backfill around the outside with stone, and it gives you an underground water collection system. Okay? And what we're doing there, we'll put a pitless adapter on it. You use the material that you excavated out of the site and use that for backfill up here to keep surface water out from contaminants. And you could with a pitless adapter on there, you could put a pump on it. I've set up a siphon out of it where I just put a pipe on it and brought it down into here to draw out of. Siphons, the thing I like to do with a siphon, if we can, get the bottom of the trench just before the spring development higher than the level of the water in the spring. Because water will always want to follow an excavated trench or along a pipe. So it'll always keep it wet to wherever it's going. So by going up and doing a loop, instead of just having it gravity straight out of there, it's going to maintain your water better. And all you have to do is push water back up the pipe with a pump. I hooked to a frost-free hydrant. I've done them on spring developments. I've done them out of ponds where people can have water to their horse barn or water to a stock tank out in the middle of a field and not have to have power out there, as long as the pond was up here somewhere, And by doing that, so you need a pretty good volume of water. I grab water with an excavator bucket or something and put a pump in there and run it off a generator or whatever and push water back up through. When you pull it back off, it creates a siphon. As long as you don't break that siphon, you got water. Yes.
We also have some really interesting, there's like these pressure relief valves that you can do if you're trying to do like a long run of pipe, and you might have some like rises and falls if you're trying to do that. There are these one-way pressure release valves that you can get from like with Master Car that work really, really well if you're trying to do like a long run of something that's gravity fed.
Okay.
Those are great.
Nice. So anyway, any questions on that? Yes.
So it's a natural filling groundwater cistern, basically.
That's, yes.
Different from like the septic system where you do a perk test to see how quickly it drains.
A septic system, you're going to keep your lines and water up in this upper layer. They want that within the top 2 feet or less. So you have absorption below it before you get to groundwater. You need 2 feet before groundwater or impervious soil from the bottom of a septic trench. So that's lines getting rid of water, as opposed to this here being an underground collection system. Yes.
This is mostly, this is not, have you done these for drinking water supplies or things like that?
People are doing with them what they want to do. Mostly they've been for animals. But before, and I've advised people too, before you do any drinking water with it, have the water tested. Because even drilled wells will have issues as far as drinking water. There's a lot of chemicals that get put out in the fields. There's manure gets put out in fields. I have relatives in Iowa, and you get on an overpass out there, and you can probably see 5 miles in any direction. And when they say they're applying chemicals, they'll say, keep the kids in this today. We're applying chemicals. They're not saying we're applying herbicide, pesticide, fertilizer, nothing. It's keep the kids in, we're applying chemicals today. And it's hard to believe when you see acres and acres of that. I bet you can't find a worm in the soil. They're killing everything, man. And how, after 40, 50 years of it, you can't tell me it doesn't make it to the water table. I've talked to them about that out there, and they're like, don't worry about it, you know. It's like, yeah, okay. Yes? I don't know if it's that bad for the animal. The chemicals aren't good for... I don't know about that so much. I wouldn't, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've seen cows stand right out in a pond up to their belly drinking pond water, you know. So I'm not into the animals that much, you know. So that's I can't really answer your question on that. Yes.
So is the idea for planning the dry well that you're talking about is to determine your usage and then get the fill to be that?
Well, the dry well itself it's hollow, you know, it's an empty ring in the center. But that's the size of it will give you a bigger volume of water.
Right. So that's what I'm asking. So do you have to plan ahead to say, here's what my usage is going to be. Here's how big of a distance.
That's a good idea, yeah.
And then backfill with gravel or sand.
No, gravel was more of a porous, like a coarse stone. I've used anything from stone out of hedgerows and or smaller stone like that to cobblestone out of you know, this big softball sized stuff to crushed stone out of quarries. Yes.
What do you do in terms of quantifying like the sustainable yield of the springs?
I don't.
Okay.
I just we did, you know. Hopefully it'll there's going to be enough water there. You know, you dig a test hole. If it fills and it stays for a month or two, okay, we got plenty of water to work with here, and that's all I've been doing on that. Haven't had any problems with them at any point yet. We've taken these things and stacked them before. We've done 2 6-footers, and where the engineer wanted, this was an engineered project, one of them a couple years ago through soil conservation, where it was getting the cows out of the mud, and it's a clean water type of thing. And there was a spring there, but the cows were waddling in it and making a mess. And so that was all going to get set aside, but we did a spring development and we stacked 2 6-foot rings. And the first one we put down, it was fairly deep, and put fabric around the structure, filled it with stone, got it up to where it's fairly safe before you set the next one on it. You know, and that's, safety is always a big issue, especially moving dirt in unstable soils. If there's a lot of water there, if there's water in the soil, it doesn't like to stand up on its own for very long. Had a lot of problems with plumbers and other people like that. If anybody's a plumber, don't get mad at me. But just working in a ditch, they don't like it. And if things are getting ugly, they have a tendency to drag your feet, and you don't want to do that.
OSHA standard is 4 feet. Anything deeper than 4 feet, you should have some sort of benching. Like, you know, basically if you're going to dig a big ditch, it's 4 feet down, and then you can do like a cut in, and then another 4 feet and a cut in. So if you're looking to really dig deep, that's the OSHA standard to try to prevent paving.
Anything else on? Yes. Yes. Go ahead. New? Who? Yeah. I didn't bring a price list with me. Since COVID, everything changes drastically right now. Probably $800,000, you know, between the lid and everything else. The one we did last year that they were going to use for drinking water, I told them to test it. They never did, but you know, I can't be their mom. Yes.
Have you ever done any using food grade, those large cubes or any of those things?
No.
Put holes in them and then done something like that? Because I feel like that would be a... Yeah, like they have this big, you know... Like,
what are they made out of?
It's poly.
Okay.
It's HDPE.
It's food grade plastic.
Yeah,
okay.
food grade plastic, you can do that, or having a series of those, like, you know, blue the blue poly drums.
Yeah, I
think
have not.
The big cubes would
I have
be
not.
decent. Because you can get like those bulkhead attachments and then pack
You get a
those.
steel frame for them, right? Like
Correct.
a metal frame.
Yeah, that's true. Like that'd be a cheaper way to do something.
Okay. How many gallon are they?
They're
They're
big.
225,
Yeah.
250 gallons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make them up to like 275.
All right. So you might have to put a couple of them together.
Yeah. There's also, you can also get like for about $300, you can get like large poly tanks as well to go in there, and they have like bulkhead toppers. I think the concrete works really nice too, but there's vendors.
Yes.
When you're talking about the gradient, that first image
Up here?
there, if you've got standing water, pooling water, in lieu of putting in tile, is another strategy to drill holes, like, you know, at various spaces so that it can
Go down?
break through that barrier?
I don't see that working very well. If you do a tile system like this here, I just kind of quickly drew out a little herringbone system. But you can also, you know, if you got rid of some of this, and you could go off to, if there's a wet area here and a wet area here, that kind of thing, you could get rid of some of these things, and maybe a wet area up here and up here. You go up through and you hit those and pull them out. The idea with tile is to go across the water. If this water is probably moving in that direction, is go across the water and intercept it before it comes out. Get up here before this wet spot and intercept it before it comes out.
What's the typical, I mean, it obviously varies, but like that top figure,
Yes.
what sort of like depth that you're looking at there?
Here I was looking at, in this neighborhood here, you're in the 3 to 4 foot range. That's good catch. Yes.
But if part of the issue is that the water doesn't want to break that because it's not, you know, going through that level of shale or whatever limestone or whatever the rock is. It doesn't want to go through there, so it runs across. But if you have something to break that barrier,
You're just going to find more of it, I think.
Yeah.
It's just going to get deeper and harder as you go. It's running across there because this is impervious soil. It's not just one layer of impervious soil. It could be like the whole stinking hill.
Yeah.
You know, this is the mountain or the hill, you know. And as this goes this way, if you've got like this break here, that soil might be deeper, because what I've found over the years, the same thing. You get somebody who wants to put a house up on top of a hill because of the view, and they can't get it to perk because there's no topsoil there. I was like, you know, when you first come up the driveway, you have this flat area down there at the break. Let's try digging a perk test down there. Well, to test the how fast water moves through the soil to get rid of the water. Percolation rate. So so you go down there and all of a sudden there's 4 feet of topsoil. Like, how'd you know this was going to be better? Topsoil all went down the bottom of the hill, man. You know. So that's, yes.
Maybe a stupid question, but if you have this water coming out in the spring, why do you want to disturb it? Why not use what's already there?
You mean,
A natural spigot just flowing for you. Why are you digging down before it?
well, it's usually when you see that, the water's just laying on the ground. So instead of with just, is that what you're getting at?
No, spring, like coming out of the ground.
Like coming straight up?
No.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Natural, like pool, like a natural, like spring pool.
Not necessarily a pool, but yeah, I mean, sure.
You could call it one. Like, I mean, if you're going to use it for agricultural stuff, then it wouldn't be a huge issue. You could probably just create a dam and then use it, but it's usually better to have a little bit more, like if you build a cistern, you can have more volume, right? And you can actually use a higher volume. If you're just using a surface, you know, like a seep, a groundwater seep or something like that, where it's coming out off the side of the thing, and you can, like I've seen that, where people will just hammer in something into the side and have it coming out. That works sometimes. This will give you a more consistent flow, like you can use it and have it, and then you're not so much reliant on the actual flow rate of the seep.
Then there's also the possibility of just contaminants through the air. You know, part of what I do with that is keeping surface water out of it by building up around it and having it elevated a little bit, the ground above the water retention. Otherwise, you can just have a pond. You know, we're not answering your question. I can see the look on you.
I'm thinking of a spring that's flowing then into like a stream, not like a spring that's a pond.
Well,
But
so
I understand.
it's a flow rate thing. So this would give you a better. Like you could use that. You could do it, but and what Tom's been saying is like if you see some, you're on a hill, you see a damp spot, and you want to use that. You want to kind of capitalize on the fact that there is some groundwater coming up to the surface. That's an area of recharge. You can go in and dig create a cistern there that can, when you're not using it, it'll fill in water, and then it becomes a repository for the water, and then you can just turn on your spigot,
Yeah.
and then it'll
Also, I think what you're talking about, if you have like a good flowing spring, like a really good flowing spring, that's like you're just really fortunate, frankly.
Yeah.
Like if your land has like consistent year-round like spring like movement of water that you can like your agriculture year to year, that's really fortunate because like at least in Texas, like if there are certain parts where like you might have a pond built up, not pond will be dry half the year, and you know it's gonna be full over the winter, but like so you dig deep, not. And it could be like a legit river. It could be like the Colorado River, where it goes like it's a legit river. People kayak on it during the winter, and it's dry the entire summer. And so you might like having good water flow. It's very land dependent, and so this gives you that consistency.
What were spring houses? Do you know how they made spring houses?
Spring houses, the ones that I've seen were something like at a break where this would drop. Like I said, instead of breaking and going flat, where this would drop at an area like that, and this water is actually bleeding out out of something like there, okay? And what they'd end up doing is building an underground pond. It's underground water storage. They'd stack this up with, maybe dig a hole, stack this thing up with stone, and then back it up a little bit, and now, you got a spring house. Put a structure around it, there you go. And then they could come over here with a pipe sticking out of it and say, hey, go to the spring, man, we got water. Has that water been tested or anything like that? Like you said, they built them out of stones, field stones. So any water you drink should be tested. I mean, I've got sediment in my drilled well. I still have a spring I developed up behind the house. I hit it with chlorine, and I have that gravity down to a hydrant 20 feet from the house, from a frost-free hydrant. So I feel fortunate with that, but I'm never out of water. If power goes out, I still got water. Having water is better than not having water. Yes?
So when you talk about like digging a test pit to see, where you have water and stuff, is there a way that you can test that water before you go through that whole process of like putting in the dry well or all that, or do you have to go through the whole process only to find out whether it's?
Yeah, you can test it. That'll show up chloroform, things like that, or not chloroform. No.
it would be E. coli.
E. coli. But
Fecal coliform.
there you go. It'd show up something like that, but I can't guarantee there's not going to be other contaminants in it, being it's open to the surface.
Right. I got you. That makes sense.
So I worked on a project where we were scouting springs for for like bottled spring water, and what we ended up doing is going out to these different ponds and seeps, and what we would do is first thing would be create a little dam and having and measuring it and gauging what the flow is. So you basically are able to go in and gauge the flow, And then we had sampling equipment where we would go in and try to, with as little disturbance of any of the particulates or anything, go in there and collect the water and then send it out for a lab for testing for fecal coliform, heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, VOCs. Those are kind of the common things that can get into water pretty easily. And invariably, like every well that we test, like every seep that we tested on this, and it was downstate just a little bit from here. All of them came up with fecal coliform. It's really common. That's just poop. So everything poops. And so, but that is the testing, and it's trying to minimize. You can also look at turbidity. It's basically how cloudy the water is. That's something else that you look into, and like total dissolved solids, which is that's basically any minerals. So like people have heard not heavy water, like soft water and hard water, and so those are like calcium and magnesium carbonates. So that if you have hard water, that can result in like mineral scaling and stuff like that. So that's usually like in terms of planning a spring or trying to look at it. I would say going in there and gauging flow. Either like, and we had a measuring tape and a ruler and just kind of measuring what's the distance, estimating what how far it is down, and then just doing like it's area times volume. Like have a little flow meter and you can kind of gauge what the flow rate is.
For testing the water, if you dig a hole, you could possibly, if the pipe's clean, stick a pipe in there and backfill around the thing.
Yeah.
And then that would settle it down, let it settle down for a week or two, and then take a test out of it there. And that would keep at least surface contaminants and things out of the air out of it. And it might give you a little clearer view of what you have for water. If there's E. coli, things like that, but it'll cut out a lot of let things settle down a little bit. And that, before you get into that kind of expense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I kind of have a two-part question. So topsoil has a lot of high carbon in it. Also, certain types of rock is maybe more able to demineralize or decontaminate certain water. So I'm wondering, number one, is that possible? Is that a thing? And then number two, I guess it depends on your situation, whether you have enough pressure or elevation differential, but it's one strategy to take, if something collects at the bottom of the hill, pump it back up, and then send it back through a series of, like have like a storing age, and then send it back through a series of filtration, whether it's topsoil or certain things, and then collect at the bottom where it's like, you got pond 1 and pond 2. Pond 1 is the first one, send it back up, and then filter it back. Is that?
You could do it.
Yeah, I think it might be kind of spendy to go
that
through
would
all
be
that.
spendy. Drinking?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're looking for like a drinking water supply, it'd probably be more worth your time to go and hire a driller and go and drill a well. Like that's, if you're looking for like a sustainable, I'm going to be drinking this all the time water supply, I would suggest that more than trying to gamble on this. This is an amazing idea for like watering your garden, for looking at like livestock stuff. This is a great idea for that. If you're looking for, you're building a homestead and you want water, I personally, like professional recommendation, hire a driller and go and do that. It's a better process.
So I understand that,
Yeah.
so economically, but the first part of the question, is that a
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that
Sand filters. You could do like layers of sand and probably some iron shavings to help get some heavy metals. They like iron a lot, so you could throw in an iron shavings. You would do, and if you were being really spendy, and you could do you could build something. You could totally build something. And like carbon layers and stuff like that to help clean it out. Like you could do that, but you would probably end up having issues with like biofouling over time. Like these things you're gonna have to figure out like back flushing and stuff like that. It's not a one-stop, you build it and you're done. It will be a lot of maintenance. You probably need to go in and look at like what your flow rate is, do a design, figure out what or whatever you have in it is. But you could do it. Like it'd be some math.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
In the 1800s, how did they used to dig wells? My daughter reads the Little House on the Prairie. It tells me about pod, digging a well, bringing a candle down, using gas, and making sure, how do they do that back then?
Hand augers. A hand auger, like you can, depending on the depth of water, you can do that. I would say a lot of the shallower stuff at this point, like we've had a lot of groundwater withdrawal, so a lot of the depth to the groundwater has decreased because there's been a lot of withdrawal over time. If you have really super shallow water, you can just go out with a hand auger and auger it down and hit groundwater and put in a well.
But what if it's not super shallow?
Then you're gonna have a problem.
I don't know how they kept them dewatered. One of the things that I've seen in practice is when, like I said, they kind of dam it up like this, and so it looks like they dug this big hole, but as you stand back and look around the surrounding area, it's actually like an underground pond, and maybe it flowed through, and they dumped a bunch of rocks in there and built up around the inside of the rocks and stacked those up so you have outside rocks around it, maybe bigger ones, smaller ones, whatever. So you have this nice circle with a cap on it and then have a berm around the outside of it. But that's I think it's more instead of digging it down as much, because I don't know how they kept the water out of the things. Yes?
One thing that it kind of makes me think of though is, so if you ever go to El Paso, people think it's a desert. Like 200 years ago, it was actually a rainforest. There's this thing called the Chamizal, and that's like when the Rio Grande was like actually like a deep river. It was like a legitimate rainforest. And a lot of people don't know that New Mexico, in order to get like avocados and pistachios and all the fancy things that we like now, they dammed all this water, and that's how they created their irrigation system. So like they have all of this awesome irrigation in New Mexico, but it means that Texas and Mexico proper has lost that. And so in order to get water for agriculture, let alone drinking, they have to do very professional digging and very professional drilling. So that's not to say that we should cry and go home and we'll try again in 200 years. But the reality is that we have to deal with the cards we're dealt. I think we do not live in Little House on the Prairie anymore because the people around us refuse to live Little House on the Prairie, and so we're not necessarily victims, but we are affected by circumstances.
Although even in Little House on the Prairie, the well is wet dry.
Also, speaking of Little House on the Prairie, while I was out in Iowa for a while, and I was surprised because dirt's different in every part of the country. And we're working with a bigger company. We're working on building a big grocery store. And they're advised to go in and core the whole site out, dry out all the material, and put it back in layers, compact it, and then dig to backfill it, or dig for the structure. And I was like, what? How'd they talk them into that, But what there was out there was pockets of sand underground that were laden with water. And they said, well, this was all underwater at one time, and there's these pockets of sand out here. So what they would have run into was, as they were digging footings, all of a sudden you'd be digging footings fine, and then you'd hit this pocket of water-bearing sand. And it would have been a nightmare. Well, it's just, you'd have to excavate all that out, put good stuff in, backfill all that. So what they opted to do, bring scrapers in, take it all out, spread it out across what was going to be the parking lot, and pull a Rome disc through it and air it all out. Just like as you disc more soil, that kind of thing, it dries it out. It's in the middle of summer, and then we picked it up and put it back in layers and built it all back up again. That's the first time I ever heard guys talking about, like, well, we have to farm the soil out. But that was so I can understand maybe out Little House on the Prairie when they dig down, hit that pocket of sand, and we got water. That's I had to laugh too when I was thinking about this, giving this presentation. Back to the Future 2. Did anybody see that? When he goes back in time to his ancestors, and he's sitting there at the farm table, Little House on the Prairie type situation, and as you want some milk, he says, I think I'll just have a glass of water. And they put this glass of brown water in front of him, And he looks at it, you know, and I'm thinking, that's what they had the cows for. They use the cows to filter the water. You know, as bringing up your question, is it safe for animals, you know? You know, because like I said, I've seen cows standing out in mud up to their bellies drinking water in a pond, you know. I'm like, come on, they're, you know.
I mean, like, let their liver, let their kidney take the hit.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of dowsing rods?
Of what?
Dowsing rods, like where you go out and you try to find?
I haven't found water like that. It didn't work for me for years. I watched somebody do it, and then I can find underground flow. One time I was walking across, and the guy says, yeah, there's nothing there. And I looked up, and there was wires going over the top, you know. But it does work for some people. I can't go out and find, like, say, hey, there's water here. But if there's some kind of flow, there could have been something buried in there. There could be a old railroad track in there. It'll pick up on it. And that's my opinion of that. It's just, we had to find some lines that I put a water main in, and I was called to go back to the site because the electric company was putting in their poles, and they didn't want to drill through any lines. And everybody else was marked. There was the telephone was marked, the gas was marked, everybody was marked except for our water. And I was like, well, this is great. Well, they're all flagged out. And I borrowed this guy's dowsing rods, and I went out across. I was like, well, here's that line, here's that line, here's that line. And then over here, well, there's where I put the 45, and that went that way, you know. So, yeah, it worked. The only thing they did is, oh, they hit one of your lines. It was a service line to a lot where they put a guide cable into it.
I was doing some utility locations for a project in Corning, and one of the things, like we had professional utility locators out there, we had the public water supply guys out there marking the stuff, and then we also, the city guys came out with dowsing rods too. Like they had other stuff, like the maps and the drawings and stuff like that, and I was like, no way, and it goes, like it moves, like you.
Yeah. But I've heard of where people, when I was a kid, there was we had a guy out on the farm had a Y-shaped piece of willow or whatever it was, and it would bend around like this and go down, and he's, oh, you've got water down there. Well, we drilled 500 feet before we found water. So, so I don't know that end of it as far as finding water, but the only thing it's worked for me and for others is finding flow or buried lines or something that might have been in the ground or dug up at one point. And I have found where I said I built a pond last year and we end up putting a spring development in, and I have a weep right here that keeps coming in. I followed that weep up with rods, and I was like, all right, we'll dig a hole up here near closer to where your house site's going to be, and we'll see what it yields. And that's what we did there. And it was a 1,000-gallon concrete structure plus the stone around it and everything else. So for just an off-grid house, that was plenty of water for them. I still advised them to get it tested. They did not, but maybe they did by now. That's not up to me, but you can treat water. Yes.
There is concern. I've heard this discussion a lot, and we're in Catholic circles here, so just put it right out there. There is a lot of concern and discussion. Is it a form of divination? Dowsing.
It's what?
A form of divination.
Oh, yeah.
So the question is it calling on a dark spirit?
Yeah.
That's the question that people ask.
Yeah, okay.
Seeping water, is that coming from an aqueduct, or is it just like an underground stream?
Not an underground. There can be underground streams where maybe there's a vein of gravel or more porous material than what's around it. There's also where were we going with that? Underground streams. Or
That's going to be enough to fill in a big hole after you dig a hole. Where's that little bit of water coming from? It's only, you're saying it's only like 4 feet deep, right?
yeah, in that neighborhood is where I'm finding stuff, but it's coming from uphill somewhere.
Yeah,
There's got to be a hill higher somewhere where it's giving us pressure here. Even if like something up there on that hill is causing pressure underneath this stream out here to come up in this, yes.
Yeah, you've got it. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, wow. Okay, who are we going with? Yes.
I'll ask a really fundamental question.
Okay.
What's the difference between a spring and a well, A, and B, if I buy a piece of land, can I put a spring and a well on it?
Yeah, springs exist.
You can't put a spring on it. You can develop a spring.
What is a spring?
Well, what I've been telling you here, a spring is groundwater that started out up higher and it's breaking out somewhere down lower, to reach its static pressure. And you can develop that as some sort of water source. Okay? A well, you drill a well, something like that.
And then you have a pump, so like the water table, so in one place the water reaches you, in the other, so in a spring, the water comes to the surface. In a well, you go to the water. The water is below your feet.
It could be 200 feet, 500 feet. Yes. Yes.
Well, a well question. If you have, we have a well, and I thought, well, I think it was the first question in the previous session. It's an electric motor, and so I wanted to put in a hand pump, and they're telling me, I've talked to 3 people, and I can't get to drop a new well. I'm like, really? $30,000? Isn't there any way to retrofit?
They make these things called simple pumps. They're stainless steel. They are spendy. I don't know if they work. Mike, I think, put one in on his place. It's a hand pump that.
They were telling me I had to do a whole new well.
No, you don't. Yeah. They make something you can put on an existing well. I don't know if it works alongside your electric well at your electric pump, but you might need a second pitless adapter or something like that to hook it up. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Is there an average depth for your typical piece of land? Is there an average depth of water that you could use as a formula?
No.
It could be like we could be sitting on a hill full of gravel right here, and not where
Yeah.
there's no really rule of thumb.
There is, however, if you go, USGS has some really good resources for where depth water is. There's a whole bunch of different, there's monitoring stations everywhere that kind of goes in and tells you what the depth of water is, and you
In
can,
a particular region?
yeah, you can just look up, type in an address, and you can, it will, I know that my nearest USGS monitoring place is up the road for me, and I know that my depth of water where I live is about 5 feet. So that's where I live, but I live basically in a wetland. But yeah, I've been in, down in Long Island, you can have stuff where it's 200 feet to reach water.
That's where I live.
And so yeah, that's and you're gonna have you probably won't have a lot of springs, because in Long Island that is all just a whole heck of a lot of sand and gravel and cobbles, and then underlying that is a large clay layer. That's the confining unit, and you don't have, you're an island, that was deposited. You don't have those hill recharge areas. So for the most part, it's just going to be sand and gravel, sand and gravel, sand and gravel, clay. And then by that point, you're, under that you've reached saline conditions.
Yeah.
So
But there are wells on Long Island.
there are, yes, there absolutely are.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No springs.
USDA website, Web Soil Survey, you can look up your area of interest and zoom down county to township. You can plot that and then find out the hydrology characteristics of your.
What resource is that?
Web Soil Survey, USDA. It's very valuable.
I had him over here.
Yeah, is swale construction, is that an effective means of of generating a spring OC downslope? I know that's something that like people in permaculture talk about a lot.
Swale construction's more for surface water, diverting surface water, that kind of thing, and helping out with erosion. If you keep it a grassy, wide, something able to be mowed, it's more of a conservation type of deal like that. It is a way of controlling water.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I might have the terminology wrong on this, but do you have any familiarity with pit wells? I've heard them called before.
I do not. Or well points? Is that what you're talking about?
That might be, yeah. It's
Where
kind of
they drive a pipe down in the ground with a little head on it?
yeah.
I do not. I know they're used in dewatering on some pipe projects, things like that. A friend of mine just put one in. I wanted nothing to do with it. It was 20 feet from the septic system. He's trying to sell this property, and I'm like, dude, all the things I've done, I'd lose all credibility. I'm out. Wait a minute. We had, yes.
What's the capacity of one of those units? Do you know roughly, like?
They could be anywhere from 4 to 1,000 gallons. They, you know, if it's a 4-foot diameter to I did they needed 1,200 gallons on this one project for stock tanks for water. They end up using 500-gallon stock tanks for the cows, and it was just a solar pump that was set up, you know, so it only got power at night. I mean during the day, and so just to recharge the stock tanks. They wanted 1,000 gallons. We went with 2 6-foot diameter units and stacked them. It's a game 1,200. They were 600 gallons a piece. 600 gallons a piece. And then you have the water around them, all that stuff.
Were you able to share the cost of what that project would be for someone who had cows and wants to do the same thing?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Is it less than a well?
Yeah, I think it was. Your drilled wells get spendy,
Yeah.
you know, and this was going to be a little bit different. There was already a spring development there, too, and we had to do something with the spring development. And so there, the runoff from the spring development, we piped that out with a 4-foot pipe, so the overflow from that would hit the stream, and I reshaped the stream and seeded it, and then there was trees that were done. So it was a pretty good project. We had 2 lines that went in different directions out to different pastures to the stock tanks. So it got a little bit intense.
What are those tanks made of?
These are precast concrete. If you're picking them up, don't think you're going to get one delivered and pick it up with a tractor and 2 chains. They will collapse if you hit a bump. Usually they use a spreader. A lot of the concrete suppliers, if you have the hole ready or whatever, will let you use their spreader, or if they can't get, if they can't get the truck close enough to the site, which is in a wet area, that's a reality.
Have you ever used sheeting to help keep an open area open?
Nope, I try to stay away from that.
Okay, sure.
We're getting spendy again for driving sheeting, and I try to keep things laid back and safe, and keep costs down on things like that, Usually we're working out of somebody's pocket. Yes?
Is there a particular method for locating a well on a property that the well's been there for dug, long time ago? You find a water source, there's a hydrant somewhere, but you can't find the well, and it's on 100-acre property. Is there a way to kind of locate where that well is?
You might be able to look at the soil types. Somebody's got a little bit of experience with that, and not just the soil types, but the terrain, and see where, like I said, the break in the soil is, where maybe 2 hills come together and there's a break. That might be where they put it.
Basically, like, where would be the best spot to dig a well? That's probably where it is. Is that sort of
That's what I'd look at there. I know, like I said, you were saying like those things more not a good way to go, but you might be able to find, if with divining rods, you can track the pipe.
There's also, if you have, this is spendy, but there is a ground penetrating radar that you can do. I think it's like $1,000 to go out there and do it, but they will map out a certain. I've done daily, 1-day rate, 1,500. Yeah. And so they'll go out there and map out a site and and they'll go in and usually they can map out all of your utilities. But and maybe I get a corporate discount. I might. So I've never personally done it. I've done it professionally a lot, like ground penetrating.
I know there's this, if there's like in a wooded area, has anybody used dog? I know that there's dog service that do this. Have there been success? Anybody heard of that?
No experience with that.
And the other thing is it depends on when the well was dug and how much paperwork went along with it. Like most places, you have to register wells with the health department.
Yes.
And if you go to like your building department, they may be able to find the records of when that well was put in, and they should have a location. If it was, some 19th century thing and it predates all of that, probably not. But like within the last 50 years, there's a pretty good chance that there is a paper trail.
Yeah. Sometimes unreliable though.
Yeah.
Because GPS coordinates. But yeah, it's a good place to start.
Yes.
Just 15-minute warning for the presenters, and then at the end of this, we're going to meet in the main tent for the ambulance.
Hey, while you're here, Mike. Question was asked about a hand pump.
Oh, yeah.
You put a simple pump in?
I did put a simple pump in. It can go up to 350 feet. You can move water. You move about 1 liter of water a pump. My system's broke twice in the 3 years that I've had it in. So it's kind of, I'm not very happy with it right now. But I am able to tie it into my pressure tank. So by pumping a hand pump outside, I can pressurize my house. Takes about a half an hour to pressurize the house for like a day's use, but it's not like showering. It's more like toilets and food water and drinking water and stuff like that. The interesting thing about the simple pump is that it runs in tandem with an existing well, which many of the hand pumps that you would buy in other places can't do that. Meaning that I can just put the simple pump as a cap on top of an existing well. I still have my electric well running. So I have an electric pump that's pumping my water, but I do have the ability to hand pump my water if I lose power. Something's wrong with my system where it's sucking air or the foot's getting stuck, or I keep on trying to figure it out, but I get a seized handle. I've had it happen like 3 times now, and I gotta pull it out, put it back in, blow out the lines, and then repressurize it, and it works again. So a little bit of a pain. So right now I'm not like full endorsement of simple pump system, but perhaps in good charity it's me that's the idiot. So so come help me figure it out one day. I gotta take it out again. So simple pump is pretty cool. I think the whole rig cost me like $3,000 for the parts, and I think about $1,000 for the guys to come drop the pipe in because they had to put extra pipe.
But that question came up before, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, while I had you here. All right, who's next? We got any more questions? Yes.
Are wells either electric or hand? Is that, if you lose your electricity, do you lose your well? Accident.
Well, yeah, with a simple pump or something like that, you can. The other possibility, other than doing something like this, what I used to do before we came up with this pitless and burying the whole underwater thing, we used to bring like the last section, bring them up to the surface, and above surface level was a solid concrete ring with no holes in it to keep, like I said, surface contaminants out. You could always pull the top off of that, and like they did years ago, you could bucket the water out of there or do whatever you want, but you will have access to the water. Yes.
Can you talk about pond design development? How to make a pond?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, ponds, the same thing is just like here. I drew a little something down here, same thing, water coming out. Where it breaks out is an area like this. And what you do is you'll dig this out, build a berm, and hold, then hold water back. One of the things in the berm, this water, how that water flows like this, it's going to want to continue flowing through the soil underneath the berm. So you have to key that berm in with a key ditch and, mix that soil back in, make sure it's a good clay type of soil, and just to stop that so water will stand up and back up so you don't have leakage on the backside of the berm. That's more of an open water type of thing. It's also another way of farming. You can raise fish, do a lot of other things. Kids can go swimming in it, depending on how clean it is. I've done them as duck ponds, backed water up into a wooded area on one end, on the other end's a deeper end, and wood ducks, things like that. It's a great wildlife type of thing, good recreation for kids. Can be a water source for animals at the same time. I don't recommend putting them in the pond because hoofed animals, they tear up the banks and they'll muck up your pond and everything else. So that's where I've done, hey, we have a pond out there and it's pasture way, way away from the barn, and you got to keep the cows out of it, man. And so we do sort of a spring development, put a pipe out into the pond. It's got to be some kind of a hard pipe that won't float, and run that downhill to a frost-free hydrant, push water back up through it, and you've got a siphon to a stock tank that'll run off a float. Yes?
Yeah, does the key a different soil? Does it allow?
Usually I use the soil that's there. You'll find something underneath, because when you dig this out, just like I said, you have this less permeable material here that the water's running across the top of. So what we'll do on that less permeable soil is you're going to excavate down into that for the bottom of your pond. And you use some of that. So as you build this, you strip the topsoil off. I usually put the topsoil on the back side, and then I can bring that up over the berm so it can be seeded. And what we'll do here is you use this excavated material to fill that. So as you dig that trench, you'll get a pile of this either bulldozed up or whatever, and you use that excavated material in that key trench to stop that and build your berm up.
So the water will get through at a slower rate.
It'll be a lot slower rate, because this is, like I said, it's running across the top of that impervious soil, and you try to get down into that and dam it up the best you can. I've had some soils, I don't know how the heck I got them to hold water, but a lot of things with a pond though too, you need a water source. I've had people look like this area is always wet, and it's what it is clay underneath, but there's no real water feeding it. It just doesn't have a way out, and they think it's a good pond site, but it's not, because you need a water source. It might have water in it half the year, but it won't. In the middle of a dry summer, it's going to look like a mud hole. It's just not going to sustain very well.
Can you divert a stream and
I tried. Yeah, you can. People do that. I try to stay away from it, because what happens with streams, they carry sediment, so it's going to help fill your pond up. I've had the stream go past, build a pond adjacent, and taking water from the stream on a pipe or something to feed the pond, then overflow from the pond back into the stream. Yes?
There's also, if you are diverting surface water, there are state regulations relating to waterways and water bodies, so you do have to be mindful of that if you're in those type of situations. Like there's permitting and things like that you do have to worry about.
I try to stay away from that too. Anything the government has to put a stamp on, I don't know if you work for the government or not, but anything the government has to put a stamp on, nobody wants their name on it. Because then you're the one that said yes to this, so they'll keep pushing it off. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, you still don't have a permit. I'm like, you guys are killing me, man.
Just one more quick one. Is the ground-fed cistern, is that considered a well by the state?
What's this? I don't know. I've only done them well, I did one for human consumption, but most of them have been for just a water source for animals or whatever. So no permits or anything like that, no.
I don't think so. I think if it's Like if it's a dry well, like it's a dry well kind of a situation, you've got a spring kind of a thing, that's not, I don't think that is considered a well. Like if you are going out there and you're drilling down deep and you're gonna use it, like, you know, you're gonna have a withdrawal, they wanna track that. In this area where it's wet, it's not as much of an issue because, but in places where there are like water rights concerns and things like that, uncontrolled withdrawals is a huge reason why you see like groundwater, you know, like subsidence and soils and like decrease of aquifers. So it's, I mean, regulatory, yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but sometimes it's not hard. Just saying.
Oh, and on our family farm, we got into trouble ignoring that.
Yeah, like that.
What else? We got a train. Cool. Any other questions? Ponds, wells, drainage? Yes.
For a pond to hold water other in the bottom so it won't perk through, what are some of the techniques you use for that? So that you don't lose all your pond water.
I haven't yet to lose all the pond water. Normally when I build ponds, it's more of a heavier clay type soil on the bottom. Not solid clay, but there's a lot of clay base to it. You know, and when you dig, if you go in and dig a test hole first, you know, you can pull it up and see this stuff sticks together, makes a ball, it'll work. Some of them were a really wet situation where there's a lot of water moving through. I've actually dug a drainage ditch up through the area where I'm going to work to let water flow and get it to dry out where I can work without having to fight mud and water and let it drain down for a month or so. Then strip the topsoil off, get everything, you know, and then work both sides of that drainage ditch. Let it drain as long as I can so that I can do a better job building what I'm building. The other thing on ponds too, you want to keep the backside of this berm, if you can, mowable. Woody vegetation is not good. Trees, that kind of stuff. Water will have a tendency to follow the roots. So if you have at least the berm side mowable, it keeps that woody vegetation down. So it's a lesser slope, so you don't tip over with a mower, that's all. How else we doing?
Keep it grass, you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, on that you want to keep trees, and no, they aren't. Like I said, tree roots will have a tendency to work their way through here, and then and muskrats are another big deal. And then if you have tree roots besides, because muskrats like they'll burrow in under the water line, then come up in and make their nest in there. Next thing you know, you've got soft spots in the berm where water's going to want to follow through. So ponds are a little bit of maintenance, not near the maintenance as a swimming pool. Or the cost, well, the cost can get up there, but it's a lot bigger body of water. But there's fire protection, there's, you know, you can put dry hydrants in, things like that, where a fire department can hook to it, which is an asset to, if it's fairly close to a road where a fire department can use it, that's an asset too. It also might help out with your insurance on your place. Being that you have, you know, you're out in the country, there's not a hydrant where they can hook to right away, but they have in the middle of winter, if they have to hook to something, they've got a way to get water.
And if you are going to do a dry hydrant, make sure you check with your fire departments. You know what size pipe they need to be able to hook that up. Usually it's like 5-inch, but check with your local fire department on that one first. We do appreciate having it available if it is available.
Apparently you're in the fire department.
Yes.
Cool. But like I said, fish, recreation, water supply for animals, and they're a fun thing. I had a lot of fun experiences and feedback from ponds, from, you know, you have fish in there already? Oh yeah, you know, I always had the big fish tank at my office, but now I got this one. This is awesome, you know. But this heron comes around, he feeds on it all the while, or, you know, somebody's grandkids are out there. They swim in that? Oh yeah, they say it's cold on the bottom. So the stories coming back from that are just so much more fun, doing land improvements and things like that. Even same as drainage. wow, I got corn there I could never grow anything before. That's the best corn in the county now, and I can get out there at any time. That kind of stuff. So I try to steer my business towards that. Semi-retired now, but I tried to steer it that way, and that's where I got a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay, we got to get rolling here. So, thanks. Thank you.